I wanted to start just by talking about something that I think you guys have unique in your experience, perhaps is not shared by many other people in the room, is that you recently both hung out in Libya, not together, separately, on separate assignments. So Libya's not usually first on people's vacation or travel itinerary, but I wanted to hear a little bit about why each of you were there and what the experience was like for you.
I guess I'll get started. So I got to visit Libya in 2012, so a couple years ago, but for work. So I was working for an NGO here in DC, supporting Middle East policy, and really supporting activists kind of before, during, and after the Arab Spring. So it was a really, really powerful visit. We went to support some youth organizations that were monitoring the elections and parliament. But it's definitely, there were not a lot of tourists at the time. It really felt like a war zone still in many ways at that point. So it was a really kind of humbling experience. But I also had some kind of funny encounters being there with my boss, at that time. And this was my first job right out of college, and just had a lot of really memorable experiences.
Well, and Chase, what about you?
Sure. So I was out in Libya in the fall, late sort of November, December of 2017. I had taken a hiatus from my time with the U.S. Digital Service, excuse me, to work on a contract with the United Nations to assist the Election Commission there with the rollout of voter registration. They have a registration via SMS platform in Libya, and they were preparing for elections that they hoped would happen last year. They're hoping will happen this year. And one of the precursors to an election is getting people registered to vote. So I was there for a little while helping them out.
So I'm going to take a wild swing and guess that there's not much of a Mormon community over in Libya.
No, not all sort of North Africa in general. It's pretty sparse. So I was there. Actually, I was given permission from sort of senior church leadership to, normally every Sunday we take the sacrament and it's blessed and passed and we receive it at church. You never would do that to yourself. It's always given to you, but had permission. Basically, they said, there's nobody, hundreds, thousands of miles near you. You can give yourself the sacrament while you're there.
There aren't any missionaries, any elders walking around the desert out there looking for doors to knock on.
History,
So tell us a little bit about that experience, how that, you were gone for how long altogether?
So I was there for about a month.
A month, okay. And so obviously you're away from your family. What are the other parts of church life, community life that were like this, special exemptions that you were a part of? Or how did you keep your spirit going during that time, since you had no community life around you?
Yeah, mostly just through personal scripture study, personal prayer. It was very interesting. I had this really remarkable experience where I was reading. So every night I'd stay at this UN compound in Tripoli, and just reading in the Book of Mormon at this time, one of our sacred texts in addition to the Bible, which a major thrust of sort of the storyline in the Book of Mormon are these warring factions of people who sort of descend into increasingly sort of fractured society, and there's this passage that really evokes that very clearly. And then sort of the next day, I heard this woman talking about how the situation in Libya is sort of that nobody identifies as a Libyan first. They sort of identify first with their family, and then with their tribe, and then their clan, and then only sort of very finally as Libyans. And it seemed like, wow, this has been an issue through this sort of tribalism has been an issue through all of human history. It's in the sacred books. We're seeing it right now here in Libya. I'm thinking about what's going on back at home as well. But to answer your question, I think just through personal scripture study and personal prayer is how I sort of kept my spiritual flame alive while I was out there.
Neda, how about you? So, it's a Muslim country. You're a practicing Muslim. So what was the experience like for you there as an American Muslim?
Yeah, it's kind of the flip side for me. So I'm Egyptian American. I'm a Muslim woman who wears hijab. And I often find myself feeling like too Muslim in the U.S. and not Muslim enough in Muslim countries like Egypt, where my parents come from, or Libya, its neighbor. So I always kind of have these funny encounters, especially as a woman too. So for example, I have a practice of going to Friday prayer services here, and that's almost unheard of in Egypt, where women can just watch the service on TV or listen from their balcony because there's prayers happening kind of on every corner. But I did have this funny encounter when I went to Libya in 2012. So, I can kind of blend in walking down the street, but I was with my boss, Steve, who does not blend in so much. So a lot of people asked us questions about, what are you doing here? And at one point we're in a long cab ride with this really lovely older Libyan man. He was giving us recommendations about where to eat great fish and do all these things. And then at one point he kind of looks at me in the rearview mirror, and when he realizes that my boss isn't Muslim, he was like, "Why haven't you converted him yet?" And I was like, in my head, I was like, because he's my boss, for starters. Like, what?
This is in Arabic, so
yeah,
it's
exactly, in
unbeknownst
Arabic.
to Steve.
And the funny thing, Steve did know some Arabic, but I don't know if he quite caught that interaction.
The nuance on that one.
Exactly. So it was just, I could tell it was coming from a good place, but it was one of those many moments that I often have where kind of Islam religiously versus culturally, like I often feel like I'm kind of walking a fine line between both worlds as I travel to, to Arab countries and other Muslim majority countries.
Mm-hmm. Was the flip side for you, Chase? Did anybody knock on your door asking to convert you?
It did not come up much, though. While I was there, it was the Prophet's birthday, and every day I would go into the election commission offices, and with this sort of half a dozen team of young, recent college grad software engineer types, who were just the most earnest, wonderful young men. And on this holiday, they brought in this amazing, sort of very starchy dish with a lot of sort of thick plum syrup, and it was phenomenal. And they said their prayers in the office there on that day, and they felt very comfortable having me there. I felt very comfortable with them, and I really appreciated that moment with them.
Awesome. So you guys are some experts in the field now, so I'm curious, as experts in governance issues, I wonder if you guys have any reflections now that the U.S. is about to become a failed state, where we're going to go next.
Yeah,
not actually a real question.
Good, yeah. But I do believe in learning from others. So actually, like in my work, we're doing a fun kind of series helping Americans learn from activists in other countries when they've had issues with corruption and backsliding democracy. So I will put a plug for that.
Nice.
And just to add, like I said, I think it was that experience of sort of seeing the divisions in Libya and also seeing it reflected in the scriptures as well, that this is a human thing, and thinking about our situation back home, just to really hit home the point that unity really matters. And if we can have sort of a conversion of heart to care for one another, even when we see things in different ways, that what we have in common is more important than what divides us. We've had members move into our congregation here in D.C. to work for this administration, and I worked for the last administration, but that we can serve together in brotherhood and sisterhood is really hard to do, but it's really important.
Mm-hmm. From your lips to their ears. Is the following quote from Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, or Thanos in Infinity Gauntlet number 1. I am death, which overcomes all, and the source of all beings still to be born. I am time, the destroyer of all. I have come to consume the world. Have you watched Infinity War? Have you guys seen it?